The cafe buzzed with energy that morning, customers drifting in and out with the aroma of roasted beans. Ava, a young woman with a determined spirit and a tired smile, moved seamlessly between tables, balancing trays and clearing plates with practiced ease. She worked the cafe's peak morning hours with a quiet resilience, carefully attentive to every detail to ensure patrons were satisfied. Ava's life wasn't easy, but her humble job provided just enough stability for her to manage her meager expenses. But deep within her, dreams she hardly dared voice sat quietly, waiting for the right moment to be seen. As the morning rush dwindled, Ava noticed a group of familiar faces filing in, bringing the loud, easy laughter of longtime friends. Her heart froze slightly. It was Tom, an old classmate, and his college friends. Memories flickered in Ava's mind of their shared school days, her shy quietness contrasting with Tom's bold personality and casual confidence. But seeing him now, laughing with friends in their crisp blazers, made her feel even more acutely the gap that had grown between them. She approached the table, trying to steel herself as she took their orders, keeping her voice as steady as possible. Tom looked up, eyes slightly widening in recognition before a smirk crept onto his face. "Ava?" he asked, his tone filled with an almost mocking disbelief. "You're still here, working at a cafe?" His friends exchanged glances and chuckles, and Ava felt her face flush, a warmth rising from her chest. Tom leaned back, watching her reaction with apparent amusement. "You know, I thought you had bigger plans than this." "Guess life had other ideas, huh?" he added, snickering. Ava gritted her teeth, forcing a polite smile as she tried to keep her composure. Their words stung more than she wanted to admit. Ava managed to take their orders and walk away, holding her chin high despite the burn of their laughter lingering in her ears. Yet, each step away from the table felt like a heavier weight pulling her down. She knew Tom was successful, with the world laid out before him in the form of a well-paying job, good friends, and all the privileges she didn't have. As she moved back behind the counter, she allowed herself a brief, heavy sigh. Life was relentless, but she had dreams she wouldn't give up on even if no one believed in her. Especially if no one did. Later that night, after her shift, Ava walked the darkened streets toward her modest apartment. The cool air brought a sense of calm as she replayed Tom's words in her mind, every mockery fueling the fire inside her. She dreamed of starting a business of her own one day, something meaningful. But with family responsibilities and no real resources, college had been out of reach. She knew the world wasn't kind to dreamers without means, yet she was determined to prove herself. Sitting at her small desk that night, Ava thought about how little she had, no wealth, no connections. But as she stared at her reflection in the dim light, she promised herself one thing, that she would not be defined by where she was. In her heart, she felt that every setback, every dismissal, would be the force that pushed her forward. Ava's determination led her to search for ways to build up her savings. She needed extra money if she was ever going to afford the business classes she'd been eyeing, so she took on a second job at the local library. It was quieter than the cafe, a welcome reprieve from the bustling mornings, and the late shifts gave her time to think. Shelving books and assisting the few patrons who trickled in after hours, she found herself immersed in the quiet dedication required by the work. One evening, as she helped an elderly man locate a book on entrepreneurship, he noticed the textbooks on business and finance Ava kept stacked beside her station. After a long pause, he gently asked if those were for her. Ava nodded, admitting she was teaching herself when she could. The man's eyes softened, and he offered her a small scholarship from his community foundation, just enough to cover one introductory course. It was unexpected, but his kindness encouraged her to keep pushing forward. Balancing 2 jobs and self-study took a toll on Ava's health. Long shifts at the cafe, combined with late hours at the library, left her body exhausted. One rainy night, after a particularly draining shift, Ava slipped on the wet tiles in the cafe's back kitchen, injuring her hand. The pain was searing, forcing her to take a few days off work. Financially, it was a strain, but physically, she had no choice. As she sat in her cramped apartment with her bandaged hand, Ava realized just how thin her resources truly were. Resting her hand gently on her knee, she fought back tears, struggling to make sense of the fatigue, the setback, and the weight of her unfulfilled dreams. But despite her frustration, she vowed to return as soon as she was able. She knew that each day she spent working brought her a step closer, however small, to her goals. Ava's first shift back at the cafe was quiet. She moved carefully, her injured hand wrapped tightly to avoid further strain. As she served a businessman seated alone, he struck up a friendly conversation, curious about the injury. Despite her hesitation, Ava explained that she had been working double shifts to save for business classes. The man listened intently, nodding with interest before handing her his business card, saying he admired her perseverance. That card, slipped into the pocket of her apron, became a reminder that someone noticed her efforts. She didn't know who he was or if his words meant anything beyond simple courtesy, but the brief exchange gave her renewed hope. She kept the card, a silent testament to the fact that someone, perhaps anyone, might believe in her dreams. In the weeks that followed, Ava's coworker, Maria, began taking an interest in her journey. Maria was a few years older and had a natural warmth about her. During slow hours, they'd exchange stories about their lives and struggles. Maria had her own dreams of going back to school and admired Ava's courage in pursuing her goals. One evening, Maria looked Ava in the eye and said, "You're going to do something amazing, I can feel it. Just don't give up, no matter how hard things get." Her words stayed with Ava, and they formed a bond of mutual encouragement. In Maria, Ava had found someone who understood her struggles, someone who offered support without judgment or expectation. With Maria's encouragement and the reminder of the businessman's words, Ava poured herself into her studies. She read every business book she could get her hands on at the library, jotting down notes and ideas during her breaks. Her hand was still healing, but she worked around the injury, determined not to let it hold her back. After much effort, she finally mustered the courage to apply for scholarships and educational programs. Writing a heartfelt essay on her journey, she shared her dreams and the resilience she'd built over years of hardship. When she mailed that scholarship application, Ava felt a strange mix of anxiety and excitement, as though she were reaching for something finally within her grasp. Months later, a letter arrived in the mail. Ava had won a partial scholarship to a local business school. It wasn't much, but it was enough to cover her first semester. Ava felt a surge of joy, overwhelmed by the validation her acceptance represented. She enrolled in classes, balancing her new studies with her jobs. It wasn't easy, and the challenges remained, but she felt herself growing, inch by inch, into the person she wanted to be. On her first day of class, she felt a tinge of insecurity. Her classmates were mostly young, privileged, and often uninterested in the world beyond their own experiences. But as she sat in her first lecture, Ava realized that her own unique journey set her apart, and that difference, rather than being a burden, became her strength. One evening, after a long day of classes and work, Ava spotted Tom again at the cafe. This time, he was with new colleagues, dressed even more sharply than before, his demeanor more self-assured. Spotting Ava, he couldn't resist making a comment. "So, still here?" he asked with a smirk. "Guess some things don't change." Ava, though stung, maintained her poise. "Some things do change, Tom," she replied quietly, refusing to let his words shake her. Though he laughed and dismissed her as he turned back to his friends, Ava felt a sense of satisfaction. This time, she didn't walk away feeling small or defeated. She held her head high, knowing her dreams meant more than any passing insult. As she continued her studies, Ava discovered a natural talent for understanding finance and management. Her professors took notice, impressed by her dedication and practical insights. While other students skimmed through assignments, Ava applied herself fully, grateful for every opportunity to learn. Her discipline paid off, as she quickly stood out in her classes. One professor, recognizing her potential, offered to mentor her. He provided guidance, advising her on ways to develop her ideas and encouraging her to keep pushing forward. With his support, Ava started to refine her vision, seeing the path forward a bit more clearly with each passing day. Ava's life became a whirlwind of work, school, and long nights filled with study sessions. She barely slept, her body and mind operating on pure determination. During particularly late nights, when exhaustion threatened to overtake her, she'd think of her goal, a business of her own, a life free from ridicule or dismissal. As the semester progressed, Ava found herself in a group project where she had to pitch a business idea. Her peers watched, surprised, as Ava confidently presented a detailed plan that addressed real-world needs. When her classmates and professor praised her proposal, Ava felt a swell of pride. For the first time, she truly felt that she belonged. Encouraged by her success, Ava applied for an internship at a major company. It was a long shot, but she felt she had nothing to lose. To her surprise, she was accepted. The position was challenging, demanding long hours and a level of expertise she hadn't yet fully developed, but she learned quickly. Each day at the office was a new lesson, a new step closer to the life she envisioned. On her first day at the office, Ava's nerves quickly faded as she realized she knew more than she'd given herself credit for. She felt confident, the roles of waitress and student fading as she stepped into the shoes of a professional. The feeling was exhilarating, a taste of the future she was working so hard to create. During a corporate event, Ava spotted Tom again. He was now working in a similar field, and their paths crossed unexpectedly. Tom greeted her, clearly not recognizing her immediately. Ava, dressed in a professional suit and carrying herself with newfound confidence, felt a sense of irony. This was her chance to redefine herself in his eyes, but she kept her identity to herself. As they exchanged formal introductions, Ava watched the subtle shift in Tom's expression as realization dawned. The woman before him was no longer the timid waitress he'd mocked. The satisfaction she felt was quiet but immense. Ava realized she didn't need validation from anyone, she was already proving herself through her own dedication and resilience. As Ava continued to excel at work, her supervisors took notice. She contributed valuable insights, handling projects with a level of responsibility beyond her role. Tom, who had not achieved the same recognition, began to feel threatened by her presence. Their roles had reversed, and Ava, once his object of ridicule, was now a respected figure in the same industry. Tom struggled to mask his discomfort. For years, he'd seen himself as superior, but Ava's rise unsettled him. Seeing her grace and capability forced him to confront his own insecurities, leaving him to wonder if he'd underestimated her all along. With her growing reputation, Ava found herself dealing with unexpected challenges. In the corporate world, she quickly realized talent and dedication were sometimes overshadowed by office politics. While she earned respect from many, a few colleagues, mostly older men, were dismissive, underestimating her potential. They overlooked her input in meetings, often taking credit for her ideas or talking over her, but Ava refused to let it discourage her. One afternoon, after a particularly frustrating meeting, Ava's direct supervisor, the CEO, took notice of her persistence. Impressed, he invited her to share her thoughts on a project directly with him. Ava's ideas were bold and well-researched, and the CEO found her insights invaluable. His encouragement became a powerful motivator for her, a small but significant victory over the unspoken barriers she faced in the office. Ava's work on the project was soon recognized by the higher-ups, earning her a promotion. Her new role came with added responsibilities, and for the first time, she was entrusted with overseeing a team of her own. She felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation, knowing that this was her chance to prove herself on an even larger scale. But with this promotion came a new dynamic. Tom, who had once looked down on her, was now her subordinate. Their interactions were polite but distant, and Ava noticed a slight hesitation in his tone, as if he were beginning to grasp the significance of her accomplishments. It was a subtle shift, but Ava sensed that he was no longer as confident in dismissing her. She could tell he was finally beginning to respect her in ways he hadn't before. As her responsibilities grew, the CEO took an interest in mentoring Ava, seeing her potential to make a lasting impact on the company. His support and guidance gave her the confidence to step outside her comfort zone, to take on projects and challenges she never would have considered before. Ava found herself learning not only the technical skills required to excel but also the art of leadership. One afternoon, as they reviewed a project proposal together, the CEO commented, "Ava, you're different from most people I've hired. You're here because you earned it." His words bolstered her spirit, and she couldn't help but feel proud. To know that someone of his caliber saw her potential meant everything to Ava, fueling her drive to succeed even more. With the CEO's mentorship, Ava began working on an ambitious project proposal. It was a new initiative that had the potential to drive significant growth for the company. After weeks of preparation, she presented her proposal to the board. Her presentation was thorough, confident, and filled with innovative solutions. The board members were visibly impressed, and many complimented her on her vision. Tom, sitting at the back of the room, watched in silence as Ava was praised for her work. She noticed his reaction but remained focused, refusing to let his presence distract her. For the first time, she felt as though she had truly proven herself, not just to the board, but to herself. This victory was hers alone, a result of years of hard work and perseverance. That night, Ava sat alone in her apartment, reflecting on how far she had come. She thought back to that first encounter with Tom at the cafe, his mocking words and dismissive attitude. Those memories still hurt, but they also served as a reminder of what she had overcome. She realized that, in a strange way, those early humiliations had fueled her, pushing her to become the woman she was today. For the first time, Ava felt a profound sense of peace. She knew she didn't need validation from anyone, not Tom, not the board, not even her CEO. Her journey had always been about her own growth, her own dreams. She closed her eyes and let the weight of the past slip away, feeling ready to embrace the future without hesitation. A few months later, Ava's project faced an unexpected hurdle. A high-stakes negotiation with a key client threatened to derail everything she had worked for. The client was skeptical of the proposal's viability, and the success of the deal rested entirely on Ava's ability to convince them. It was a daunting task, but she tackled it head-on, meeting with the client personally and addressing each of their concerns. Her hard work paid off. After days of intense negotiation, she managed to close the deal, securing a future for her project and solidifying her reputation within the company. This success felt like a triumph on multiple levels, proving her resilience and capability in the face of adversity. The accomplishment was hers, and she felt stronger than ever. One evening, after a long day at the office, Ava found herself alone in the elevator with Tom. He looked at her, his expression conflicted, and after a moment, he finally spoke. "Ava," he began hesitantly, "I owe you an apology. For everything." His voice was quiet, filled with a humility she'd never heard from him before. "I underestimated you," he admitted, his gaze dropping to the floor. Ava took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Thank you, Tom," she replied, her tone calm. "But you didn't underestimate me, you underestimated yourself." She offered him a small, forgiving smile, signaling that she held no ill will. Tom nodded, looking visibly relieved. It was a moment of closure, one that allowed Ava to move forward with a sense of peace. Just as things seemed to be settling, Ava's project hit another obstacle. A financial oversight led to a sudden budget shortfall, jeopardizing the entire initiative. Faced with pressure from her team and supervisors, Ava felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. But she refused to let panic take over. Instead, she approached the problem with calm resilience. After hours of brainstorming, she devised a creative solution that involved reallocating resources and negotiating with suppliers. Her plan worked, and the project was saved. Her colleagues marveled at her composure and ingenuity, recognizing that Ava's leadership was both firm and adaptable, a rare quality in the corporate world. Ava's dedication and ingenuity didn't go unnoticed. Shortly after the project's completion, she was offered another promotion, this time to a senior executive role. This new position placed her in charge of an entire department, a role that came with significant influence and responsibility. For Ava, it was the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. She accepted the promotion with quiet pride, knowing she had earned every bit of her success. Tom, now a subordinate in her department, seemed subdued, but he showed her the respect she deserved. Ava felt a sense of satisfaction that extended beyond the title. She was finally in a place where her voice mattered. In her new role, Ava found herself working directly with Tom's team, a situation that held both irony and challenges. As his superior, Ava remained professional, treating him with the same fairness she extended to everyone else. She noticed that Tom tried hard to regain her trust, approaching her with a genuine humility that surprised her. Their dynamic had shifted entirely. Instead of disdain, Tom now showed genuine respect, even going so far as to seek her advice on projects. Ava saw his efforts to change, and over time, she found herself forgiving him completely, recognizing that his growth mirrored her own in unexpected ways. One day, Ava was asked to present her project at a major industry event, an opportunity that would put her work and herself on display to leaders across the sector. She prepared meticulously, aware of the importance of this moment. Standing before the crowd, she felt a rush of nerves, but as she began her presentation, a calm confidence took over. Her presentation was met with applause and praise from industry veterans, some even approaching her afterward to discuss potential collaborations. Tom was among the audience, watching with an expression that bordered on awe. Seeing him there, applauding with genuine admiration, Ava felt the final weight of her past lift. She had proven her worth, not to anyone else, but to herself. As Ava's career continued to flourish, she took time to reflect on her journey. She knew she had made peace with her past, but memories of old wounds still surfaced from time to time. It was in these quiet moments that she allowed herself to acknowledge the pain she had once felt, the humiliation, the doubt, and the struggle. But with that acknowledgement came a profound sense of closure. She recognized that every experience, every hardship, had shaped her resilience, her strength. The person she was today was a result of everything she had faced, and she found herself deeply grateful for the journey. After several years with the company, Ava received an offer to become the CEO of a new branch they were opening. The opportunity was a dream come true, one that aligned perfectly with her aspirations. With pride and humility, she accepted, preparing to step into a role that would mark the pinnacle of her career. At the ceremony celebrating her appointment, Ava spotted Tom in the crowd, clapping enthusiastically. She nodded in acknowledgement, feeling a mix of emotions. The girl who had once served coffee was now leading a company. It was a moment she'd once dreamed of, and now it was finally real. As Ava settled into her new role, she began mentoring young women in her company, sharing her story and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. She knew her journey could inspire others, and she wanted to use her experiences to uplift those who were just starting out. Her story became a testament to the power of resilience, proof that determination could overcome any obstacle. In the faces of the young women she mentored, Ava saw glimpses of her younger self, eager, hopeful, and full of potential. She felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, knowing that her success had the power to inspire others to achieve their own dreams. One evening, as she left the office, Ava found herself face to face with Tom. They exchanged a brief, friendly conversation, reminiscing on the years that had passed. Tom admitted that seeing her rise had inspired him to work harder, to treat others with more respect. "Thank you, Ava," he said sincerely. "You showed me what real strength looks like." Ava smiled, feeling the last remnants of bitterness fade away. She had come full circle, and she knew that her success had transcended any old grievances. Her journey was no longer about proving herself to others, it was about the person she had become. Ava stood at the window of her corner office, gazing out at the city skyline. She thought about the countless hours, the endless work, and the dreams that had brought her here. Her life was now a reflection of everything she'd worked for, every challenge she'd overcome. With gratitude in her heart, she looked forward to the future, ready to face whatever came next. As she closed her office door that night, she left behind the shadows of her past, embracing a future defined by her courage, her determination, and her unwavering belief in herself. Ava knew her journey was far from over, but as she stepped into the next chapter of her life, she was certain of one thing: she was exactly where she was meant to be.